Welcome to the podcast for real-life heroines. Let's embark on a journey that unveils the extraordinary stories of everyday women who redefine what it means to be a heroine or hero. Life is a tapestry of inspiration and magic, and today's episode is no exception. Here's your host, Susanna Liller.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me today on the podcast for Real Life Heroines. Today, I am talking with such a heroine. I don't know if she would call herself a heroine, but we'll talk about that with Lael Couper Jepson. And she and I were just discussing what I'm going to read for her bio. And first let me say, welcome, Lael.
Thank you so much. I'm so
Thank
glad to
you.
be here. Yeah,
Thank you for being here with
my,
us.
my complete joy.
So she was going to send me her bio and she didn't. And then this morning I got an email, Susanna, I'm sending it. I'm sending it. Well, I had already worked my way around this issue.
Mm.
And she had said to me, Susanna, I'm a writer, I'm a speaker, I'm a coach. And then I was going to add to that, and she's a mother, and she has two sons, and she's a wife. And she had said to me, and bottom line, I'm an artist. So I was going to tell you all that. And then, she defined artist for me. An artist is an artist when she says yes to what's inside her.
I said that.
Okay, how good is that? Everybody listening. An
Thank you.
artist is an artist when she says yes to what's inside her. And how many groups have I facilitated around the artist's way, Julia Cameron's work?
Yeah.
People saying, I'm not an artist. I'm not an artist. Yeah, you're an artist if you say yes to what's inside you. Yeah, you said that, Lael. So
Wow.
then she sent me, I got the email with the bio and I looked at it and her note, Lael's note was edit away, do whatever you want. And I read it and I thought, oh my gosh, I need to read all this or most of it because of another thing that Lael believes about all of us, but she said it about herself. She said, and frankly, Lael, I've been reading all your stuff. And
Wow.
I can't remember where you said this, but you said something to the effect of, I am as big as the state of Texas, but why am I squeezing myself to be like Rhode Island? And oh my gosh,
Oh no, I
so
forgot I said that.
yeah.
Yes.
And I think so many women do that.
Hmm.
So I want to read the big Lael stuff in here in this bio you sent me,
Okay.
if I have your permission.
Absolutely. Go for
So
it.
I won't read all of it, but Lael is the founder of SheChanges. Lael has harnessed the belief to create a robust community that shares her passion for weaving together the threads of women, change, and leadership to strengthen the fabric of our society. She believes with all her heart that this is the key to create a stronger, more equitable, and vital world for us all. And she's not alone in that mission. And so just putting that into context with what's happening in the world around us, we need that kind of a fabric for sure. With a background in corporate consulting and a master's degree in organizational development and change, she brings a wealth of experience to her clients, helping them to reimagine how we might work, lead, and do power differently with heart, fire, and conviction at the helm. Do power differently.
Mhm.
Wow. It's pretty relevant. She helps her clients navigate the art and the science of making a conscious transition. And here I feel like I have to interject that that's what the heroine's journey is all about,
Yeah.
transitioning.
Right.
Um, yeah. So, and we can talk about that more too. Um, and understands firsthand what it's like to feel confined by the traditional corporate world and how lonely and challenging that journey can feel to break free from it after years of cumulative exhaustion, and conditioning that train women to fight, apologize, explain, and justify, or maybe I'm adding this, just
Yeah.
make themselves feel smaller, to justify our existence at every turn in the road. So, of course, as you're hearing me and you're listening to these words, you're getting that, yeah, Lael is a writer. Lael is a writer. And she loves words.
Hmm.
Known for her dynamic approach, yes. Refreshing irreverence, yes. She asked me if she could swear, and I said, absolutely. And insistence that waiting is overrated. And I think we're going to talk more, definitely more about that because she's currently putting together a keynote about waiting and change and how it can happen quickly. Lael uses her story to inspire and challenge others to embrace change, think differently, and lead courageously. She combines bold thinking with compassionate guidance, helping clients break free from outdated systems and lead with authenticity and clarity. She's the author of two books. The first one she wrote in 2015 called Unscripted, A Woman's Living Prayer. And then one she wrote in 2019, which is the one I've been poring over on my
Oh,
Kindle, which is called Ignite. Ignite, lighting the leader fire. Wow. Through her writing, speaking, and community building efforts, Lael inspires others to challenge convention and embrace change with courage and confidence. Wow, Lael.
there's so many threads of conversation in there.
I know there's
Yeah.
so many, and we have had a short discussion about what do we want to talk about. And
Amazing.
I've got that list in
Mhm.
front of me, but I don't know if we're going to hit them all, but we'll be working on it.
It'll
And
be something.
but I am obliged because this is
Mm.
me to just talk a little bit about our background because I always
Yeah.
love to share the story of, well, how do you know each other and
Right.
when did you meet? And so my memory, and I think you agree, is I was giving a workshop when my company was then known as Ruby Slippers
Mm.
on personal strategic planning, using your intuition to see what comes up, to see what you might be doing in 3 years. Though you make the comment in your book, Ignite, we don't have 3 years. I don't want to answer that question.
Right, right.
It was very intuition guided.
Yeah.
And there you were in the workshop, and that's how I first met you. And then the last time I saw you, we were in the parking lot of our favorite massage therapist,
Oh,
Julie
right.
Clymer.
In the woods, magical
And
woods.
then in the middle there, no, actually, also early on, Ruby Slippers, we met with you to
Right.
take advantage of your consulting expertise, your organizational development expertise, and you helped us unbind ourselves from what we had done to ourselves. You actually cut a thread to
Forgot that.
symbolize that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Wow, way back. What a journey.
yeah, that's like
This
20
is like
years.
that old show, This Is Your Life. It's
And now
wild.
I'm going to bring the panel in of the
Yeah.
people who knew you.
You know, I've had the experience in my life of coming across myself when other women are discussing this woman that they know and admire, and literally stopping the conversation, inserting myself and being like, "Who is this person? She sounds awesome. I would love to meet her." And they would look at me and be like, "It's you." And it's such a deeply uncomfortable conversation because you're at once caught falling publicly in love with yourself, which is like mortifying and very uncomfortable. And then there's this shame of how could I have let that happen? How could I literally have not recognized myself when described in detail?
Yeah.
And so that's happened to me two or three times. I aim to get better and better at that.
I
But
was going to,
like this help?
I wanted to talk to you about that
Yeah.
because, but you know what? I
Yeah.
feel the need, and I never do this, but
Okay.
there's something about you, and I know you appreciate
Yeah.
ritual and creating sacred space. And
Yeah.
I need to light a candle.
Oh, lovely. Awesome.
I know.
Yeah, the story you tell of the binding and the cord, that was long before I studied stuff around rituals and just goes to show you how deeply embedded our innate knowledge is. We
Right,
know
right.
stuff that we've forgotten.
Yeah.
So thank you
We
for that.
just set an intention there, I think.
Yeah.
And so my daughter yesterday, we were talking, and she was talking about her friend who was telling her, why are you taking this big course in dance when you teach this and you know as much as this other teacher does? And she said to me, how did I not see myself as she did? And I think you mentioned the same thing. You meet this woman, Angela,
Yes, Angela Mayers.
and she said,
Oh,
you're
here she.
Lael. And
Yeah. Oh, you're Lael. I'm like, in Rhode Island. It was in Rhode Island, ironically.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And you wrote, why did I show up dim,
Yeah.
blinded by her light? And you
Yeah.
said, because I compared myself to her. And that's the great sin of
Yep.
women, right?
They're great training.
Yeah. So falling in love with yourself, is that important?
Oh, yeah. Matter of fact, I wed myself. My husband and I celebrated 25 years of marriage not too long ago. And
Congratulations.
thank you. And I decided, had this moment where I was going to renew our vows, and I felt like I was driving everything. This is important to me, this ritual. I'm going to get a ring. And I felt myself driving and was starting to resent that I was driving. Like, why am I driving? Like, why am I the one that's driving this? So I let go of that and I decided, oh, what I want is to wed myself, which I've never done. I got married in 1997, back when I didn't even realize what being a woman had anything to do with anything. Never identified as feminism, actively made fun of that.
Hmm.
And, and I was one of the guys. I did not understand, nor did I appreciate, obviously, the degree I had disassociated with being a woman. This is prior, obviously, to being a mom and all that other stuff, which brought me into that world. And I start now here I am, so I'm 56. So this was 2 years, 3 years ago, where I realized I'm going to take my own, that scene from Brave, the movie Brave? I'm going to fight for my own hand, the archer. I
I
was like,
love
I'm
Brave. Yeah.
taking my own fucking hand. I never did that. I'm going to go back and get that shit. And it's the first ring that's closest to my heart. So I
Hmm.
took off all the other rings and
Hmm.
I bought myself an infinity band, which I have never been, put this in quotes, I've been actively discouraged to do because I'm an artist. I'm very animated, very outdoorsy. So I use my hands. And I was told years ago, you might not want to have the diamonds go all the way around because you're gonna break that shit. It's too fragile. And I was like, but I bought an infinity band and I had a ceremony. And it was years after I had a croning ceremony. I have all these ceremonies of walking over the line, and it is my job, it is my responsibility to love myself first, to define what that means for me. Because how dare I ask anyone else to do that if I've not done it for myself? And that has not been easy. So if people are listening to this and they're doing the self-love, I should do that or whatever, it's a lifetime practice for me.
Can you say that again? How can I dare to ask anybody?
Anyone else to
Yeah,
love myself unconditionally if I have not gone first?
right,
I'm
right,
constantly training
right.
people on how to be
Yeah.
with, and I do that with my clients all the time. How are
And I
you?
bet that, so I have a long practice of working with people in conflict. And
Mm.
so much of that is at the root of why we get into conflict because we don't love ourselves. So we're constantly projecting and it causes a lot of problems. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, wow, where to begin with you? I know where I want to take you, but
Like a play date.
well, let's just talk about Ignite for a minute. Okay.
Okay.
Um, so
Is
you
it-
wrote that in 2019,
Yeah, and then everything shut down shortly after that. So there
pandemic.
was such urgency with that book. It was, and if you read the opening sequence of that book on the beach,
Yeah.
It was right. It was about, for people who haven't read it, I gather everyone on the beach, and there's the burning shores, and the world is on fire, and we're gathering in a safe place by the ocean, and the cool water off the ocean, and the hot heat of the land that we can no longer live on, and the very young and the very old are looking, going, what's happening? How do we let this happen? Where do we go from here? And I gather and I say, grab my hand, and we turn our backs to face the ocean, which is dark and unknown, sort of a metaphor. So fast forward shortly after that, I don't know if you remember, but in Australia, there were all these big fires.
Yeah.
And I had all these clients text me and said, what this visual, they gathered on the beach.
Yeah.
And then in Hawaii, there were the volcanoes and the fire gathered on the beach. And then COVID hit. And then, LA and the fires and this metaphor. So I've been reading and rereading that section and remembering in my bones the urgency with which I felt. And I didn't know, I need a deadline, and I write furiously. I call it, I write like in a fugue state. So I've never been one to dally over writing. It comes out. It's why I self-publish. I could never do
Right.
the 5, 10 year market research stuff
Right.
because it just
Right.
comes out almost like channeling. And I'll often do this with writing.
Hmm.
And that one scene, I don't know if you had that experience when you read it recently.
Well, I have. I do the journaling morning pages every morning, and it comes out there. But I just coincidentally, there are no coincidences. I took that section and put it into my notes of what I wanted to talk to you about. Because to me, when I read this just the other night,
Mm.
all I could see was Los Angeles and knowing that the people were on the beach. And I'm thinking, what was this, a prophecy,
It
Lael?
feels like it. I mean, it just keeps
Yeah,
repeating
yeah.
itself.
And so here are your words. I look at you next to me, and I
Yeah.
see you are feeling much the same way I am. We are disturbed by this sight, but also somehow not surprised because our land has been burning for years. This is where we live, and for many of us, it's all we've ever known. Yeah. So this leads me to why you think waiting is overrated.
Oh, well, shit. Okay, here's where I am today.
Okay.
I mean, first of all, the short answer is what's the alternative? And we have so much evidence that proves that that doesn't work. And I know so much about change. I'm really at a place in my life, happily, that I'm like, I have, I have some context around this. I have lots of experience around this. I'm hearing myself say a lot. I know change. I know change and transition. And what I know is that we talk a lot about change, a lot.
A lot.
We hear the word transform. Ugh. And I flinch every time I hear it because I raised boys and they had transformers that
Oh,
ratchet, ratchet, ratchet. And it's power over, and it's violent, and it's I know better, and I'm gonna fix you. And a lot of women's businesses. It's the sacred cow. I'm gonna make a lot of enemies saying this, but that word flinches me. And the reason why is because we talk a lot about change. We rarely talk about transition, as you know. And transition, as you know, that's where the work is.
yeah.
Change is the consequence, and change is the event.
Right.
Change is the thing we talk about. Change is what we put on social media. Change is the book being out. Change is the baby being out. Change is the business opening with its glory. Transition is the muck, and transition is the pain often, and the loneliness, which we do not put on social media. We
Right.
do not talk about openly. And so I feel strongly about waiting, because to wait is to prolong. We have this idea that if we wait, we will not feel uncomfortable. If we wait, we will feel ready. If we wait, we will feel confident, comfortable, equipped. We won't feel vulnerable. We won't feel pain. It's such a false narrative because the analogy that I use that people can relate to, I've never done this, maybe you have, but if you go bungee jumping
Oh,
in a bridge in Australia, have you bungee jumped?
no, no, I'm so not a bungee
Me
jumping.
neither. But I would imagine it would be scary as shit, right? So you've given some 20-year-old your weight and
Mm.
they've done the calculations of how strong your rubber band needs to be and like how far it will take you down. And you put the harness on and change, it would be like looking at you on the bridge and you're terrified of dying, which is could happen. It's not a crazy notion.
No.
And I look at you and go, why are you so afraid? Don't be afraid. They know what they're doing. It'll be fine. I mean, those are all lies. You don't know. I mean, and so it robs us of our humanity, which disconnects us from each other. So we have this deep capacity to be with discomfort and to feel and to grieve comfort and known, to leap into the unknown. But we refuse to let each other we don't have the safe spaces, nor do we have the permission and increasingly the skills to be with each other in transitions.
So to be with each other and hold each other in the unknown.
And instead, we do the dangerous thing of using the word fearless.
Yeah.
I cringe when people call me fearless because
Yeah,
I feel unseen.
right.
I'm
Because when
like,
you're jumping into the unknown all the time is usually what a heroine would say,
yeah, look at the
answering a
whites of your
call.
eyes.
Right. But then fear is your constant companion. You're
Oh,
leaving
and
comfort.
anybody in the military knows this. Any artist knows this. Any athlete knows this. I mean, it just robs us of something essential. So I find I fight for it. So my most recent uh, sort of framing around this is here we are, and now I'm getting really toothy about this because tick, 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 tock. Like we're
Yeah.
like, hello, we're running out of time. I'm now looking at my grandchildren and their grandchildren, and I'm getting super toothy and hag-like and crone-like, and I'm pulling out all the stops in service of where we are. So my voice is getting louder, and I thought I had a loud voice before. So here's where we are, is we have this pervasive narrative that change takes time. So if I stand in front of the audience and I say, fill in the blank, change takes, most of us will say time. And yet we have this keen awareness, a lot of us, that we don't have a lot of time just with our planet, let alone where we are, age and chronology and fragility of where we are. Just with our planet, we are running out of time. And yet we have this mindset, this fundamental mindset in our society that change takes time. So this creates this impasse of, you know, I've got to rally and muster strength for a long time, but we don't have a lot of time. So where does that leave us? So what I'm doing now is flipping that narrative on its ear, which is what I'm known for.
Known for. Yeah.
What I do a lot is to challenge conventional beliefs and say, think about it. Think about it critically just in your own life. Do you know those moments where the carpet was ripped out from underneath you in an instant and you got that call? In my case, the day I got the call of blood work, that was like, this is not good, Lael. And I was super busy and super important. You know this part of my story, Susanna. And in an instant, everything changed, and it can be good stuff too. That like the minute I literally crashed into my husband and literally and got a whiff of him, like a pheromone, like, oh, there you are, sensation. And my first word was, well, shit, I was not planning on you, thinking about you. I was just getting comfortable to do this, and here I go. So changed in an
Yes,
instant.
yes, I
And
agree.
if you really think about what I do with people is these are the beliefs we're told, we're trained. but think about the evidence from your life. Go back and get your own evidence and see if it substantiates that belief. Because that belief, and this is where I'm going, is designed to preserve the status quo. Change takes time. So who benefits from us believing that? The status quo, the patriarchy, the systems. So that's
Schools,
where
the
I,
schools, the
oh, yeah.
writers who are saying, there are
If you see
steps
your
to this.
hand, change takes time. Relax. So
Yeah.
what I'm saying to people is when you hear that phrase, listen for it. And listen for it in you and listen for it coming to you. And notice, think, what did you just say that elicited that response
Mhm.
of, well, change takes time and this is more complex and just be patient and don't be so dramatic and relax. And, the one that gets me from my own my own older women and women my age and women even younger than me is we've come so far. Just be grateful.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So,
you said to me one that also kind of hits you hard is when women, or I don't know who says, just you wait. And that's sort of a warning. You're going to see. It's not like what you think.
it's
Yeah.
a it's a tamping down of what I believe is wisdom. So I've never really bought into linear thinking or chronology. It's why I hang out with the kids at the Thanksgiving, my nieces and nephews at the table. But I love like age just doesn't sort of track with me. And so my whole life I've heard just you wait, just you wait, just you wait. And my response has always been, you know, I've never really thought about this, but my response usually is, oh, I will. Now I'm like, no, I
Oh,
won't wait. I can't believe I ever said that. Oh, I
yeah.
will.
Yeah.
Because it was like I didn't want to rush. I wanted to be present. I wanted to not dress rehearse weight and gravity. So when I was engaged, I didn't want to be thinking about when I was having children. I wanted to be engaged. I wanted to be a little present to my life.
Right.
But yeah, that sense of just you wait. I'm just going to put a sharp point on the pencil. It has this effect of you can't believe what you believe because you haven't lived long enough,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
which
So
is really wrong,
I could be saying to you, because I am not 56, I'm 73.
right?
Oh, Lael, wait till you get to your 70s,
Yeah,
then you'll see. And
yeah.
yeah, I'm not there because I'm
And do you
still
do
learning.
that? Do you do that? I mean, I've never experienced you doing that, which is why we have a good relationship. Because I
No,
wish he was a model of someone who doesn't do that.
yeah. Listen, I got a great aha from reading what you sent me to help me prep for this call from Ursula Le Guin.
Oh my God.
And it's
Big
something
fan.
I never thought of. So I always have hated the word crone. I
This is
thought,
not, a lot of people do.
I don't like that word.
A lot of people do. Very strong reaction, of course.
But what she says and what you're saying is that how could you skip this important milestone that women get to have that goes along with menopause that, men
Yeah.
don't get to have that. We get to have that. And here I am throwing it out with the bathwater. Yeah. So you have gotten me to accept that, yeah, I guess I certainly am a crone.
Yeah, I don't think he'd mind, but excuse me, my husband has used the word hag at times. Not to me, but to refer to someone who's getting in the way of something.
Ah,
To be a
okay.
woman. And we've
Okay.
had this conversation, so I think he would be okay with me sharing it. I'll check later. And I said, you are married to one. So you need to, there's a great book called Haggitude
Yeah. I've
by Sharon Blackie. You got it? That it's like because what we do as women age is we strip them of their sexuality because we are no longer in that pregnant, fertile ripe period. So we've outlived our service to humanity and we are cast aside. And we know, holy moly, do I have a lot to say and offer, which is what Ursula Le Guin talks about in Space Crone. I hope you can link to that in the show notes.
Yes,
So
yes.
good. Just for the word cockadroop is just the best word. Is it not? I've never, it's like the best word because she's very, God, she's a great, and this is her, an essay she wrote. So she's known most for her fiction, her dystopian fiction. Um, but this idea of using, we cannot become what we do not name. And so I've long ago when I studied Lisa Lister's book, which broke me wide open, wide open. And she said, I'm not going to teach you anything you don't know. I'm going to invite you to remember what you've forgotten, which, by the way, pissed off all the witches who are like, you have to be initiated and you have to have a coven. That's like, you can't do that. You can't cheat the system, which is capitalist. You know, you have to learn, you have to whatever. And Lisa's like, no, you don't. You just have to remember.
Mm,
And I loved her stuff, and it got me to see the power of words. You said I'm a word lover. I never set out to be a writer, but it makes sense given how I use words because words are how we shape our reality.
yeah, yeah.
Like we
I,
can't say woman president. We can't say madam president because we've never had it. We have because we can't talk about it because it hasn't happened.
mm.
Right?
So this whole idea too of you already know it, it's within you,
Yeah.
but we have such a hard time, I think women do, believing that they have power. And
Yeah.
I just ran across Alice Walker's quote, most common way people give up their power is thinking they don't have any. And
Oh, so good.
yeah, so
So many good quotes.
yeah, and you said a woman needs to decide for herself that she has this power within her. So
I
it's, yeah, you said a lot of great things.
mean, that first book I wrote was 10 years ago. And I have this thing of forgetting that what I've written.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Wow. Yep.
yeah,
Isn't that the
yeah.
truth? And not just once. That's the mistake. Not just once. Again and
Right.
again
We
and again.
forget. We
Yeah.
forget.
So
Because,
that's why I bring reverence to remembering and forgetting,
yeah,
because you talk in the heroine's journey of like, the curvy lines and going through it. I'll often describe life as a spiral staircase and say, why am I here again? And I'm like, Glennon Doyle did that years ago. She talked about going up a spiral staircase and seeing the same window is on the staircase, but you see it from a different elevation. And I just love that because I feel like my theory is that we all have a handful of conversations that are particular to us and our lifetime and why we're here. So mine are like too much, being too much, being out there, being smart and defining what is intellect. Someone will talk all this stuff in this past election around educated and uneducated and smart and didn't know. Oh, it just gets my dander up because it's so dangerous. And I'll say, define intellect, define smart. How are you, like, like think critically about the concepts we're using, the words we're using, the phrase we're using. Unpack that for yourself, question it because, as someone who has relied so much on my emotional intelligence, never getting credit for it, and I just feel my way forward. So very instinctual, very intuitive. That's my artist. I'm feeling my way forward. I don't know. So I'm really railing against this course that I'm doing around writing a keynote because they're like, how are you going to transform your audience? I'm like, I tell you what, I'm going to give them an experience and I'm going to trust that they will glean from it or not. And something will happen as a result, but I'm not going to predict because I don't think that's that doing power differently. You know?
They must hate that, hearing
Well, I
that
don't
from
say a
you.
lot of it out loud because it's a good process and I'm grabbing the good stuff. But it is hyper masculine, and a lot of the world of women's businesses, if we're not careful, we just recreate where we came from.
Mm,
Who's
mm,
your audience? How do you
mm.
want to capture them? You
Right,
know, listen to our language.
right, right.
Yeah, so I'll use words, and I did this. I mean, if people are listening, going, "Oh," I mean, I didn't. You don't know what you don't know until you know it or you remember it. So I fall into this trap all the time, and then I remember.
And wouldn't you say that so much of the help with this is learning to connect with your intuition and paying attention to that and listening to that and
Yeah.
not going up here and figuring it out and thinking and or marrying the two.
Yes, it's the marrying of the two. I mean, in Ignite and what was my first book? Unscripted. The symbol that I literally a year before I wrote Unscripted, I found my hands kept doing this, and I watch people's hands for a living. That's what I do because bodies don't lie. And when they're like, I don't know, and I can watch the hands. And
Mhm.
my favorite thing to do is engage a women in a conversation around magic. And I'll say, what is magic? And it just drops because it's hitting, it's hitting all sorts of stuff. And I let it sit. And pretty soon the hands will come out and the eyes will go up and they'll start to, and I'll watch and I was like, and I'll say, see our hands? We know it's in us. It's coming out. It just doesn't come out through our heads first. But it's got to go up and get the heads and get so that's why I'm always like the integration is important because that's why I often don't use the word patriarchy because it takes us to matriarchy. And I'm like, oh, it's why my desire is to get this conversation to masculine and feminine. So I work with a lot of men and I have two boys and so we need each other. This is not about more division.
Right. Right. So do you use sacred feminine?
Swallow my spit with you. This is very frothy mouth conversation.
Maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So what about, do you use sacred feminine and sacred masculine?
I do because there's toxic masculine and toxic feminine. I absolutely do.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I do because I love and I have a very strong side of me, and most of my clients do masculine energy. That is our default energy. That is why we are often drawn to corporate worlds because men will authorize directness and ambition and competitive nature. So that is I mean, I'm a competitive athlete. But I shamed myself for so many years because that's how does that look in a woman's world? And thank goodness for athletes like Serena and Michaela Schifrin and who's the fabulous gymnast. There's so
Oh,
many.
yeah, there are so many.
Talking about people are going to know who I'm talking about. There's so many of them. But in nowadays, they are providing integrated models of what masculine and robust masculine and feminine energy look like inside a woman's body.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then I hold that for men as well. I've had men come up to me after being on stage. I'll never forget, Susanna, after the first time I did She Speaks, which is my evening of women's storytelling I haven't done since 2019. This guy came up to me who went on to become a client of mine, and he was like, he had his hand out. And you could tell, like, he was like, why am I coming up to you? I have no business coming up to you. I'm not even supposed to be here. He was there um, to support a woman who was on stage, his sister-in-law. And I remember watching him come up, and I could see, like, what am I going to say and why am I coming up to you? And he's like, who are you and what is this? And like, and then another person that night, another man that night said, when are you going to do it? He speaks.
Oh,
And I burst out laughing. This was me in my 40s. And I was like, yeah, well, isn't that the government? Like, isn't that the world? So we're good. And I shamed him. and regret that. But I'm glad I did because it gave me the realization of that's the reverse thing that's happening to us, is he was hungry for something I was tapping into, which was the feminine. So the way people were telling stories weren't rehearsed. They weren't scripted. They were messy. They were vulnerable. They were wild. We were swearing. We had no particular place we were taking you. We weren't transforming you. We were radiating.
Mm,
We were embodying.
mm,
And he was hungry for that. And I think that is, and then sadly, years later, I would do this in 2019. I would do it years later. I've done it 10, 11, 12 times. And I heard later that there was a woman who was commenting of how many men were in the audience that night. And another woman said, "Yeah, isn't that awful? They're harshing our jam. They've crashed our party."
mm.
And and she related to me. She's like, "That made me so sad." I'm like, "I get it." I was that woman who said that.
Right, right, right.
Because women need safe spaces. And sometimes when you get into a space for the first time, you're so hungry for it, you don't want men there.
Yeah,
And I get
no,
it. And ultimately, we need to invite men into women's spaces to say, here's how it can look and feel. It's different.
hmm. Maybe we invite them in initially as witnesses and watchers.
And they were, I mean, they were like tears coming out of their eyes
Mm,
and like wildly applauding. And, so there's such reverence. And people will, it's how indigenous people are talking to white people and how black and brown people all over are like, don't be in the center, but welcome.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, don't do that thing.
right, right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So when are you going to do that again?
Well, that's the big question. I don't know. I needed to pause because I outgrew the space. And it's funny because I took an intentional pause. I'm like, I just released Ignite. I did a 2 night offering. The first was traditionally 5 women come on upstage, and I'm the MC. And I have not even created the website, the webpage on my new website because I move fast creatively. So there's videos and you can watch all these things. And then I did sort of a one woman show the next night as part of the launch of this book. And then I was like, and now I'm taking a break. I'm not doing it for 2000. And then COVID hit. I was like, well, good thing I'm taking a break. Wouldn't have been able to do it.
Now you're writing two more books, and why don't you
Yeah.
just tell us what they are? And then I'm going to ask you the big final question.
The big finale, which I don't even know what it is. So the 2 books I'm working on now. So in answer to, I think I'm taking the keynote that I'm working on, and I think I will be on stage the first week in December with my audience. So anybody,
Wow.
me and my
Hmm.
work, and
Hmm.
people fly from all over the country for that. So I don't have the venue, but I'm in setting that intention. The 2 books I'm working on, one is I'm so excited. It's the book that I always feel like I've been writing for years. It's tentatively called Before I Die: Conversations That Will Save Ourselves from Ourselves. So it's this idea of there's so many, I listen for conversations that are not happening or conversations that are living underneath our conversations. So for instance, change is a conversation we're having, transition, vulnerability, the unknown, ambiguity, discomfort, insecurity, all of that lives underneath that. I don't know lives underneath that. And so I listen for all of these conversations, and they excite me. And it is the essence of the work that I do. So it's a book of essays and then I'm offering, here's how to get into that conversation with yourself and
Hmm.
with others.
Hmm.
And so I'm very excited about that. And it's the first time I feel sort of out of my lane, but it's not really.
No, it sounds like that's your lane. You're
It's totally my lane. It's totally my jam. And
you're
all of my books,
speeding down
by
that
the
lane.
way, literally the title Before I Die, it has the implications of the earth before the earth dies. Like this is it.
Oh,
This is the big
right, right,
show.
right.
This is the bloody, in labor, we would call this the bloody show.
Yeah.
Right when we're stretched the widest, when a woman's vagina, which is an essay where we don't talk about vaginas, but it's all where we come through. Um, and I have so much I could say about that. But the bloody show, it's when we're ripped, the torn apart, and Rumi talks about that's where the light gets in.
Yeah.
This is, I do believe we are being born. I do believe. And I didn't make that up. Valerie Kaur talks about, who wrote See No Stranger and another book. She talks about what if this is not the darkness of the tomb, but the darkness of the womb,
Yeah.
right? Do you know this?
Right. Yeah, no.
We have a country that is not dying, but a country that is trying to be born.
Right. And the two twins in the womb are one saying to the other, "What do you think it's like on the other side?" "Oh, there's nothing, nothing." And have
Oh,
you ever read that one? It was,
no.
yeah, where the other one is saying, "No, there, maybe we're going to meet the mother." "No, mother is, you know, we'll never get to see mother, but of course they get born and they're with mother. So
Yeah.
it's like a whole nother way of looking at what we think about death.
Oh,
Maybe,
one of the biggest chapters. God,
yeah,
I love talking
yeah.
about. I'm talking in April down in Philly. I'm participating in an event called Dead Talks, which I'm just so excited about, of talking more. It's the first time it's happening, so I'm really excited. But I'm talking about so much with organizational leaders that I work with. We do not talk about endings. Everything begins with an ending, and we don't talk about that inside organizations. So it's why it's so hard for people to retire.
Yeah.
And why, like, then when you do retire, you go right onto a board, because there's no space.
Letting go, letting go.
Yeah.
And that's
Graceful
William
death.
Bridges, who wrote the book about transition,
Oh, so many people talk about that.
talks about you have to have a good ending. Yeah.
Unless you don't, unless you don't acknowledge it, and then you have this battle, this epic battle. And if you listen to how we talk about death and dying, it's always a battle. There's a great there's a great TED Talk by Amanda someone who talks about we need a noble narrative of death, because the only
Mm,
ones who have
mm,
fought a battle and lost or conceded, or
mhm.
it's so sad. We have no graceful narrative of death and endings. Yeah.
Well, so I
Well,
have to somehow
Mom,
gracefully bring this to, and I knew we would have this problem.
what was your big question that we never got
Oh, well,
to?
here's the big question, and I ask this of everybody.
Okay.
So we have talked about a lot of topics today, and you have said many things that are so worth remembering.
Hmm.
But to the listener out there, to the
Yeah.
person maybe watching this on YouTube, who has this big life and has to go run to the store or go run
Yeah.
back to her,
Yeah.
what would you want her to remember? If she can't remember anything else, please remember this. What would you say?
Hands down. Listen to the stories you tell yourself about yourself and question them. Flip
Mm,
them on their head and start with change takes time.
mm.
Go through your Rolodex in your head. I'm dating myself because we don't have Rolodexes anymore.
What's a Rolodex? Yeah,
Have a little,
you know,
go
I
through
know.
your, we don't even have filing. Go through your iCloud and pull out personal evidence that substantiates those stories. So mine was, I'm vicious, I'm mean, I'm cruel, I'm heartless. Carried that story with me and well into my 40s until I ever questioned it. So I had to be careful with myself because I was dangerous and I could hurt and do harm until I gathered evidence and I
Hmm.
realized that was something that was put on me by family.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So question your stories, question what you tell yourself,
And gather evidence
gather
to
evidence.
show how it can't hold water often. What we fear is often unproven.
I could ask you to say so
Oh,
much more to
this
help
was so much fun. I felt like we just got in a sandbox and
us.
threw some glitter sand
Thank
around.
you. Thank you for
What a
doing
joy.
that.
What
And
a joy.
I know you're getting ready to have a break here, and may it be everything that you need it to be and
Yes.
want it to
I'm gonna
be.
write my books and cook,
Yes.
all
Yes.
sorts of walk on the beach.
And I'm going to be sending you an email and asking you, because you mentioned some books and some
Oh,
of them
yeah.
no, but
Yep.
have you, so we can put that in the show notes
So
too.
many.
But for people who don't want to wait for the show notes because they're like you, they don't want to wait.
Yeah.
Waiting is overrated. How best to get a hold of you, knowing you're going to go on a break, but
Yeah.
just in the future, your email?
Yeah. Lael at SheChanges.com.
Lael at SheChanges.com. And
Yep.
her beautiful, beautiful website is SheChanges.com.
Oh,
So thank you, Lael.
yay.
Thank you, everybody who's taken some time to listen to us or to watch us
What a joy.
spend
What?
time with us.
That
Yeah,
was fun.
yeah,
Yeah.
I
Thank you.
agree. Okay. Blessings on your way, everyone. See you next month.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the podcast for real life heroines. Your time and presence mean the world to us. If you're hungry for more inspiration and ready to craft your own heroine story, connect with Susanna outside of the show. Visit SusannaLillard.com to discover her courses and programs designed to empower you on your journey. Until next time, may your days be filled with the courage and strength of a true heroine. Stay inspired.